greetings and hello, everyone. I'm just so excited to be able to bring you. This is the second episode in ACDA Connecting with the World. And today we're so fortunate that we get to focus our attention on our incredible colleagues from the country of Sweden. And, if you remember, in 2015, ACDA worked in coordination with Sweden with one of our panelists, Fred Sjöberg, and we created an international conductors exchange program. And that was incredible. We got to work with some wonderful choirs and conductors, like another panelist, Graden. And so for us, it helped to reestablish and reconnect us with our brothers and sisters in art and music. So today, I'm just delighted because we get to spend some time with three wonderful folks in Sweden who are really helping to make the profession or create for the profession new directions and establishing a standard or continuing a standard of excellence for their country and for the choral profession. So my name is TJ Harper. I'm delighted to be here with you. We also have the ACDA Executive Director, Dr. Tim Sharp. Hi, Tim.
Hi, TJ.
We have also with us Margareta Raab, who is the Director of Music at Uppsala Cathedral.
Hi.
We have Graden, Director of Music at the Stockholm Cathedral. And we have Fred Sjöberg, Artistic Director at INTERKULTUR and Headmaster of a music school out there by Örebrö. I think I said that correctly.
Yeah, fantastic. Hello. Yeah.
All right, great. But first, before I ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves a little bit further, I want to go over just a couple of ground rules. So one, we're going to ask for your patience if we come across any technical difficulties. So far, so good. I think the tech is going to work just fine. But don't log off. Stay with us if there is a problem. And then finally, in the last 15 or 20 minutes or so, we're going to be really excited to have you ask some questions, you the attendees that is, of our panelists. So there should be a little panel on your screen where you can pose questions, and then Tim and I will go through and make sure those questions get to our panelists. So without further ado, going right into our discussion today, the first thing I'm going to ask is for each of you to introduce yourself, your current work, but of course, most importantly, could you tell us how you and your family are doing during the current health crisis? Maybe we'll start with you, Margareta.
Yeah. Hello, and many thanks for inviting me to participate in the webinar today. I am the choral director of the boys choir and the girls choir in Uppsala Cathedral, which is the national cathedral and the seat of the Archbishop of Sweden. The choirs are two separate choirs, age 8 to approximately 22. And this expression, boys choir, in Swedish, it corresponds to your boys and men's choir. So we also have young men in the boys choir. About my family, I'm truly grateful that my husband and our children are stayed healthy. But of course, many parts of our lives are radically different. Our high school age son, he has completed schoolwork from home for months now. So the food bills are enormous. Yeah.
All right, great. Thanks so much, Margareta. And Gary, will you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm the director of music, one of actually 3 directors of music in the Cathedral of Stockholm. Storkyrkan, this lovely church on the top of the old town. And I have worked also in the same parish is our other large and beautiful and wonderful music church, Sankt Jakob. And in these 2 churches, I've been working for many, many years. I have, I'm responsible for one larger choir, that is to say our, what's called, we call it a chamber choir. This size of it was really quite the standard with our Fred and my conductor and teacher, Eric Erickson, this size of a chamber choir, 32 singers. So I have a chamber choir in the cathedral. This is Sankt Jakobs Kammarkör. And then I have a small ensemble. And the ensemble is a group of paid singers who perform for specific occasions. And we can, sometimes we're 4 singers or 6 or 8, depending on the occasion. And a part of my responsibilities, I'm officially in Swedish, it's the cantor. So of this old Lutheran tradition, the cantor of the cathedral, domkyrkas. And but I'm not organist. I'm the conductor of the choirs. There are several choirs in our parish, so I help to organize them. I organize our different services and concerts and so forth, and I'm quite a bit of a producer. We have a very active concert series. Our churches are very important concert venues in Stockholm, and so I am a big part of my full-time position in this Lutheran cathedral is as a producer, and we have a big and important concert series during the season, during the year, and of course this is a big question: what's going to be happening, what has happened now, and what will be happening in the near future, as it is for all of us. And that's really what I've been focusing on, and that's my main job. I do quite a bit of work in and around Sweden and around in the world, and of course that's more freelance work, and of course so much of that has been, everything has been canceled now. All of these beautiful projects that were planned for this time. So, and as far as my family is concerned, I have 2 older boys. They live in town in Stockholm, and they're staying well and staying active with their respective work. And my wife and I live out here in the suburb of Stockholm, and she's working in a hospital as a speech pathologist, and she's working 3 or 4 days a week in the hospital, and then also spending some time at home. And I'm at home quite a lot, and we're staying well. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Gary. And last but certainly not least, and Fred, I hope you don't mind if I let the cat out of the bag, and on behalf of all of us, say a very happy birthday to you today.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy for that. Thank you. So yeah, I have my birthday, and I'm very happy to be here on this panel tonight. And I have had a wonderful birthday with my wife and one of our sons and his family. 2 other of our kids, they are in Stockholm, so they are not here with us since we are living about 2 hours outside Stockholm and in another county, so to say. So first of all, about my family situation, we are well, but we think that both of our sons has been having this COVID-19 because one of our sons lost all the taste. He had fever and coughing and so on, but he could be at home, and it took about one week, 10 days, and then he was fine again. And then my oldest son, he has been having we say a severe cold for like 6 weeks, but now he's fine again. But we think this was a kind of a thing. So of course we are very, very happy that it was not worse with them. But otherwise, Gunnar, my wife, and myself, and the rest of the family and our grandchildren, which are 5 of them right now, they have been fine all the time. So we are very pleased for that. So what I'm doing, I'm the artistic director in INTERKULTUR, and of course this situation has had a huge effect on all INTERKULTUR things this year. I'm also running a lot, like Gary and Margareta, a lot of invitation to do guest conducting, guest lecturing, master classes around the world. All has been cancelled. So right now I have no travel this year. Everything is gone. So it's a fantastic situation, really. But I mean, you have just to realize and to face the fact. So, and besides of my work as an artistic director, I'm running my chamber choir, Örebrö Chamber Choir, which I have been conducting now for 35 years this year. And it was a little bit, this spring was so special because we started as a wonderful project to do all major works for choral and orchestra by Bach 2 years ago. Not the cantatas, but all the other stuff. And of course, the big fine finale should have been St. Matthew Passion in April and cancelled. So we have done all the things. So now but we have postponed St. Matthew Passion for hopefully next year. But I mean, that was something that really affected all of us, and also the singers, of course. So, and then I'm running, I'm the headmaster and the dean of a community music and art school in another county. And we have also been heavily affected on this situation. But now we are looking, it's getting better and better. So that is how the things are.
Great, thanks so much, Fred.
Thanks, TJ. Margareta, I first met you before I became executive director of ACDA. I don't recall the year, but it was way back, and I got to work with your children and youth choirs there in Uppsala, and came to appreciate the very fine, high quality level of work that that you do and that goes on there. Gary and Fred, of course, I've gotten to know you through ACDA and through IFCM. But I should say about all three of you, ACDA goes back a long way with Sweden. You know, before TJ Harper and I came along, the very first exchange program that took place with ACDA many, many years ago was with Sweden. It was people that have been our teachers, TJ's and my teachers, actually came and studied and got to know people. And I see from the list that's on our sidebar here on chat that some of those people are attending this webinar today. They're watching you and listening to this because we've had this long relationship with Sweden. And I really appreciate that. I think we've learned so much. In my office in ACDA, I have a picture of Eric Erickson along with Robert Shaw and other great choral leaders, but Eric Erickson was very important in the development of our profession. So just a big thank you for the relationship that we've enjoyed for a long time with Sweden. And then of course, more recently through TJ's work, we've had exchanges with your dear conductor friends there. I want to ask you, Margareta, particularly with the young people, the children and youth that you work with, can you tell how this situation has affected them during this COVID time? What are you seeing with the young choirs that you are working with?
Yeah, when we went into the pandemic, we were just about to start the celebration of the boys' choir's 100-year anniversary. The boys' choir tradition in Sweden isn't very old. Of course, there have always been singing boys in the cathedral, but the first organized choir that we know and that is still existing is Uppsala Cathedral Boys' Choir. It was founded in 1920 by the former Archbishop Nathan Söderblom. So we planned for a great anniversary during the whole year of 2020. And for many years now, we have been working on the plans for the Jubilee. But we had to postpone it all so far.
Mm.
And of course, this is a big disappointment for the choir and for me. And the choristers are also disappointed because they cannot meet and practice. We postpone a tour to France and several tours in Sweden. Today was the day where we were supposed to start the Boys Choir Festival, the annually one visit, which is a very important thing for boys, especially those boys who sing in small choirs with maybe just 4 or 5 singers. It's very important for them. And as you know, many of them think of the choirs as their extended families. So of course it's difficult for them, but they are young and look forward and hopeful.
Margareta, how are you continuing to communicate to them? How are you keeping your the community together? What efforts are you making, and how are you doing it technologically, or what is your method of trying to keep some hope alive and keep communication going with your young people?
Yeah. Honestly, I must admit, I have not been that very most Zoom rehearsal active conductor. I was quite stressed the first weeks when I saw on Facebook that lots of colleagues immediately started to stream the rehearsals because
Sorry.
because I was in sort of a shock after the cancelled celebration. So we don't sing it all, but I stay in contact with the choristers by email, telephone, and video link, and try to give them updated information. And the elder choristers take a huge response, making quiz and competitions on Instagram, so that the choir can keep socially together at least.
Right.
And we are in the beginning stages to produce a virtual performance as the last choir of everyone. And there have been some occasions where 1 or 2 choristers have been serving in the high mass, singing parts of the liturgy.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah.
Because
Gary,
we have.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, Gary, how are you're dealing with adults and of course, as you said, your concert series. What's the psychological state of your singers, and how are you coping with this situation?
Yeah, well, I feel we're actually quite out of touch, to be honest. We were planning when we made the decision to close the cathedral for our concerts. We were that week, we had already started rehearsals for the Matthew Passion. We were in the middle of it. We were just starting, and so this is the 4th. The last meeting was the 4th of March, and then it's been just really waiting to see what would develop and what would happen. And with our board, we have a very active board of directors of the choir. We met every week to see, okay, what can we do? Can we find a way? When would be an opportunity to meet again? When could we start to sing? We were sort of taking it week by week. And to see actually what the development, what would happen. And very soon, the authorities, our leaders in the parish, they also decided no concerts and no services. So the weeks went, they passed, and we were really just waiting. Of course, I felt like my singers, they have their lives are so full. These are adults in their most active and productive years now, and they're very active in their professions and with families and so forth. And I felt that I didn't really need to support them at least immediately, and to have a more direct contact. But you can sense that the frustration is growing and the need for the contact is growing. And we made a choice 2 weeks ago. We actually had we tried to have a rehearsal again. Our Wednesday evening rehearsal, and we had about half of the choir. And it was so beautiful. Everyone to come in, you could feel the release and the joy of them meeting. We met not in our normal rehearsal room, but in the cathedral, and we were quite spread out in the room and taking all important precautions. But it was so touching, to see and to hear them singing and to be together again. And I really do understand, in spite of, and I say this again and again, even in normal conditions, I really understand what it means to them to meet every week. And as Margareta, you said, it's their family. They are family. The music is important for them. They need the musical stimulation and the opportunity to sing on a high level and this, but it also is important for them to meet and to share. And now I'm sensing that these weeks that pass, the weeks pass, and I'm sensing that they're missing this a lot, because they are friends and they are extended family, and they're missing this opportunity now to talk, to share what is happening. How are you doing? What's going on in your work? What's going on with your families? And many of the singers are right in there in the front line. They're doctors and health workers and so forth. How are they doing? How are they holding up? So I feel now, as the weeks pass, that after we had that rehearsal 2 weeks ago, then actually the board of the choir and the choir decided it's better not to meet physically, because it's not really in keeping with the recommendations of the government and the health authorities. So we had the one opportunity. It was like a fabulous release and a beautiful moment for us. We all appreciated it very much, but we decided, okay, that's it for the season now. And but now I understand, also with our regular contact with the board of the choir, that we need to communicate, really actively, not virtual meetings, and we haven't been singing together online or these kinds of things. I don't imagine we'll do a virtual performance. I don't see that happening, but I really feel I need to know, and I think we need to find a way to share what's going on, to how they're doing. And as we think about now, as we begin to think what will happen after the summer, that's the questions that are coming up now. What happens? Okay, we Swedes, now the days are longer and the weather's warmer. We can begin to live a beautiful life if we're healthy. If we're staying healthy, we can begin to enjoy the change of the climate. But after the summer, what's in store for us. So I think we will be through email contact and through telephone discussions, perhaps online discussions with individuals.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Gary. Thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate that. Fred, tell us about how you're coping. How are things going with your choir and your singers?
Yeah, as I told you, we had this huge negative surprise of the finale of our 2.5 years Bach project, which was very hard for the singers. And it was really hard to cope with, because it was you know, we have been working so hard, and we were, as Gary, we were right in the middle of the rehearsal production before the performance, and then this happened. But what could we do? And what helped us a little bit was when this decision was taken, I was contacted by a colleague from China. So we quickly switched gear and made this recording of the song Stay With Me, which is a co-production with a chamber choir from China and my chamber choir. And that was in this mentally tough situation, I felt that this was a huge help for my singers to share this, and it felt that we stepped right into the situation, which has hardly not started in Sweden, but was full force in China. And then it came to us here in Sweden. So I'm very happy and grateful that we had this possibility. But after that, when we have done that, then there has been no rehearsal at all. And they are missing, and we are, and you know, to have a choir, and also if you have a choir which is with very highly engaged people in different situations, you need to have contact, because otherwise it's so easy to lose. So we have a strong board. So we meet every second week via web, for example. I write monthly or every third week a letter to all the singers. The chair does the same thing. We keep in contact via email and so on. And now we have not met since February in the choir, and now we are planning, and I'm not sure yet how we will cope with it, but we have an idea to do some virtual recording individually with the singers, as many other choirs has done around the world, for our national day, and to put on Facebook and on the web like 3-4 national romantic songs. That is what we are hoping to do, for example, for that. And then we also have, before the summer breaks in, we felt that we need to meet in some way. So we will meet some out in a huge park on June 2nd, just to like 2-3 meters from each other, and everyone bring their own food and plates and what to drink, just to have to see each other alive, you know, because web is good, but it's another feel. It's another feeling when you meet eye to eye, so to say. So it has been hard, and we are of course in the same situation. What will happen in the fall? I mean, we are now scheduled for Beethoven 9th Symphony in the last week of September. It's really, really unpredictable at this time. Will it happen, or will this be cancelled also? So it is a tough time, and you just need to cope with it. And to as conductor, I feel that I'm there for them, to support them and give them positive input. So to stay, have contact with them in that way.
Thank you so much, Fred. You know, this is really amazing. I just got this great comment from our friend Michael Barrett in South Africa, and he's thanking all of you because this is actually helping him to cope. And
Michael!
it's making him feel better. So this next question, actually, it was wonderful. There was a comment from a colleague, Ana Patricia Carbajal. She's in Mexico City, and she's talking about, you know, ways in which, you know, we might be able to work with our choirs. And this is the question that I was going to ask anyway, about how this is affecting our choirs, and any strategies that you have for develop to engage and encourage your singers at this time. And so I don't know if anyone wants to jump in.
Well, from my side, it's about what I just said before here, that we are trying to keep contact with the singers via the board, via myself, the email, and also personal contact via phone, of course. And we have not been doing those web rehearsals in the chamber choir. We have not done that.
I have obviously understood that it's impossible to uphold the highest ambition level. Nobody can during this time. But however, there's time for reading, especially literature. And so what I would like to say to the colleagues is, this is not really the time to be good and able. We can just wait for better times, and you can tidy up your office and organize your scores and do other things you normally don't have time for.
Yeah, I'm thinking about what we could do and what we can do, and what would be possible. Now, last night, with the ensemble, with the smaller group, in fact, we were 4 singers. We met and sang with no particular ambition and no particular project in mind. I just asked them if they felt like getting together, and we sang Palestrina masses and Renaissance madrigals, and it was glorious. And we'll continue to do that. It takes a bit of work, but I could imagine that it would be very interesting to meet smaller groups of singers, and I can imagine inviting either from the chamber choir, say, is there a smaller group that would like to join me, or just to make a list of, say, these people who would be willing, who would be interested to come and meet as a small group, just to have the chance to sing together. And another possibility would be to have individual lessons. We do this every year. I ask my singers to come and sing for me just some piece, and we have a chance to meet, to hear them sing, and then to discuss any other interesting questions. This might be a possibility for us now, but I haven't done it as of yet. But of course, now we're getting to the end of May. We're planning to finish our season now, the middle of June, the June 10th. So we're near the end of the season. I liked your idea, Fred, about having some kind of physical, although not non-touching, non-touching meeting, and perhaps that would be something that would be great for everyone, before the summer breaks loose. We have one final for my own situation. It's quite interesting. I've been singing a lot recently. For the weekend for the Easter weekend, I recorded a couple of pieces that I normally sing on Maundy Thursday with my colleague in the cathedral. And it was so beautiful to sing with him. And we recorded and broadcasted from the parish. And so this is something personally, and I don't know if there's other singers of the choir, what they're finding, if they're finding other ways to be creative in music. But I've been singing a lot, and it's like, it's so joyful, because I normally don't have time to do this, just for the fun of it, for the joy of singing. So this is something that's keeping me fit and alive, and still we keeping the joy of music making alive.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gary. I think I think that's great advice. And you know, many people have said to me that they miss singing, and I say, well, sing.
Yeah.
Sing.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You know, you've
Mhm.
got a shower.
Go
Go
ahead.
for it. You've got a hairbrush. Come on, go for it. But you know, what we're missing singing, of course, is we're missing singing as a group, as a community singing.
Yes.
That's why we're on this call. We're choral people. Our art is community art, and so that's what we're missing. And you touched me with your comment about how cathartic it was, how wonderful it was when your singers saw each other again. I think it's gonna what a glorious moment that's going to be when we're not going to be able to sing. We're all going to be crying for those first two rehearsals. We're not going to be able to sing. We know that. It's really amazing what we've been denied. And well, listen, I'm going to take a little break here and I want to listen to some music. Margareta, you and I first met when you performed My Christmas Messiah for Young Voices way back in the 1990s.
Yeah.
And you got to my attention because I heard the most glorious performance of it that I had ever heard, and that was with your singers. And so TJ is going to play a little bit of that recording of you all, and I'd like to celebrate that for a moment and listen to your performers singing my setting of Handel's Messiah. TJ, can we roll a little bit of that?
Sure, of course.
Wow.
Hey,
Beautiful.
fantastic.
Beautiful,
Thank you.
Mark. And
Wow.
Margareta, I believe you've gone on to make that something of a tradition there in Uppsala. When was the last time you performed the settings that I wrote?
Well, we perform the Christmas parts every Christmas Eve on the Christmas play in Swedish then. And one of our clergies have also made the scenario for the Christmas play. So we do it every Christmas Eve, and sometimes we do the whole work in English as well.
Well,
so thank you for that.
Well, thank you. Next time you do it, let me know. I'm going to put it on my bucket list of one of these Christmases to be at your place on Christmas Eve, listening
Great.
to that. Yeah, listening to that. Well, let's talk a little bit about your hopes for music, choral music in Sweden when we go into this recovery period that we know is going to come. We're very hopeful. But what do you think, and what do you hope for as we roll out past this moment and move into this post-COVID era that we're going to all be working in? What are your hopes for choral music in Sweden as we move forward? Fred, could I start with you and think about moving ahead and what our dreams and hopes are beyond this point?
Yeah, well, the wish is, of course, that we could go back to normal as soon as possible. But what I think we have learned something from this also, because in my work as the dean of the Music Academy, the community has told us that stay at home, work at home, do the meetings with your teachers, with the board, do that at home. So I am spending like 95% of my working time via the computer, and of course sometimes I hate it sometimes, but I mean you have to cope with it. Yeah. Because the work has to go on. But I think what we have learned is also we can have good meetings in another way with less traveling, that means less pollution in the air, more environmental friendly way of coping with the future. So that, I mean, that we have already talked about that in the leading group in the community, that this is what we have learned. And then I think it will take a long time before we will travel again with a choir, doing the tours. That will take, I mean, we will not starting to tour in the fall. I think we have to see in a longer perspective. So that means what I think we have to think about is how we can develop and maintain our choral work in our close environment, meaning where I live in my city, maybe 1 hour out of my city. We will do, I think I will do much more locally placed concert in the coming year, at least in the fall, probably also next year. And then slowly, suddenly it will take place that we can lift off into bigger events and so on. And I mean, I'm very sad for, we had this wonderful festival now in Helsingborg starting next week with many choirs from abroad, from China, from US, from whole of Europe, in the city of Helsingborg, cancelled. Now, and now we are looking, and then you have to postpone them. So our next goal now, and we have chosen to do it in the first week in November next year, because then we have almost 1.5 years, which probably make it easier for people to come. Because for myself, in my life, living this international choral life has meant so incredibly much of learning, of finding new friends, finding new repertoire, and you need that. I mean, we need to breathe that. We need to chew that to be good leaders for our groups and choirs. And meanwhile, I think for the future, locally placed, working a lot more with the web. That is my tool, what I thinking of.
Yeah. Gary, what are your hopes? What do you look toward the future to?
Yeah, of course, we if and when we can return to normal, then of course it's to be able to provide our community with our music, of course. That the choir has the opportunity to continue to be together, to continue to develop, and that we can hopefully have an audience. Now, for us, this will be a huge question for the future. Can we ever, will we, or when, how far in the future can we have an audience like in Uppsala Cathedral or Stockholm Cathedral of 1,000 people in an audience? When we ever have audiences like this in the future? You know, will we be able to? And this, of course, will change our entire structure, because we are so dependent on the income from selling tickets to these concerts. So my guess is, and our strategy would have to be, that we have to think in a completely different way, in terms of repertoire, in terms of our projects with orchestras, and of course, this will be a great challenge. How we will be able to finance these projects. And we are a great employer of freelance musicians. And what happens with them? Where, you know, we have to strive, find new ways to employ these musicians for the music and the quality of our music in our churches, for instance, in our communities, but also to employ these people, to keep them in work. This is a huge challenge. But Fred, at your point about travel, you know, and I think about it in all the work of all the travel that I do and that the choir does, maybe, perhaps, I can imagine we will need to be much more selective and most likely restrictive in the future. And of course, then the challenge is, how can we still make great music and be and have and maintain our choral experience can continue to thrive with a completely new reality. So there's big challenges ahead for us.
Yeah, Margareta, your hopes. Where do you? What are you looking to kind of pull you through, and what are you thinking about for when you come back together, and just what's on your mind as you're looking at the next year?
Well, of course, I hope that we can do our anniversary celebration, and that we can do the tour to France, because we had a very nice visit from them just weeks before all this happened. But I hope and I think that there will be a craving and a hunger for culture, and maybe also for acoustic music without microphones and screens. Because this period, technique has been in focus, of course, because we need to find solutions for things. But maybe when we can meet again, humanities and cultural expressions will be more important for us. And I do think that my older choristers will quickly regain their focus, since they have been singing for years, and will be able to regain their singing techniques. And my greatest hope for the younger ones are that they will be inspired by the older choristers and quickly feel the sense of community that we had created before.
You know, this is really, thank you so much. It's so helpful to, well, of course, one, to know that we're sharing so many of these emotions and these thoughts and concerns about the future. And there was a wonderful comment from Marlies Lindblad talking about just being able to engage with the choirs that she loves online and virtually in YouTube, and the conductors that she loves. And I think this is something that it feels so necessary now at this time. We have a follow-up question to this that I think I was going to ask.
Marlies Lindblad from Philadelphia?
Yes.
My cousin.
Yes, your cousin.
Marlies! Oh, my dear. Oh.
I want to follow up and maybe ask our panelists to drill down a little bit more in terms of this question about how we return. We had one attendee, Christina Bailey, talking about mental health, self-care for our singers. And then the question also came in a different form from Jaakko Mantiarvi. He's just next door to you, right, in Helsinki?
Yeah.
And he says, his concern is that in the audience, performers and audiences may be too scared to reconvene, even if the situation and the recommendations allow. So, how do we communicate? What is the strategy for messaging for our singers, but also our audiences? And Gary, you started to talk about this a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, these are the questions now that we have to begin to really penetrate. Now we're finishing this, this semester, this season. And now the question is, what can we plan for the autumn? We're planning a 40th anniversary for the choir in October. Other projects at this big season. You can imagine now that the autumn will be a continue for us. I imagine it will be a continuation of what we have now. And then farther down the line, finding ways to meet an audience in a safe environment. Perhaps when the weather permits, the season permits, to be outdoors, to sing outside, to sing perform in the Stortorget, in the square of the top of the old town, to do outdoor performances. Well, of course, where there are much fewer people, and to invite to our audiences in our churches much fewer people, than to plan programs for this kind of an audience. Oh, that's our great challenge.
That's right, and I think, but it means a great deal to know that, to hear you talk about the audience as a priority, and it means a great deal because we are the community is so much larger than ourselves or our choirs, of course. Margareta, I'm sorry, I thought maybe I cut you off.
No.
So again, this conversation of how we reconvene. Of course.
Well, okay. As the Public Health Agency of Sweden have now told us that the spare times activities for children are very important, and we shouldn't cancel them anymore. The plan is to start the rehearsals from 1st of June, and for 2 weeks just before the school holiday starts. But of course, there are a lot of restrictions we have to follow, so it won't be as usual. We are not allowed to meet in larger groups than 50 persons, and the concert choir both from the girls choir as well from the boys choir, they are both more than 50 members, and we have to keep distance, of course. So we will rehearse in the cathedral instead of the ordinary rehearsal room. But that's the plan. I think recruitment will be a challenge for the next term. what is the best way to offer singing audience when the youngster cannot or don't dare to physically come to the cathedral. But we'll try to start up the rehearsal in a slighter way.
And Fred, any thoughts about this from you, especially as it pertains to some of the larger projects that are going on?
Yeah, it is. I can tell you what happened in the music school 2 weeks before Easter. Well, first of all, the situation in Sweden has been very different. I mean, Sweden, the long sausage. So in Stockholm and south of Stockholm, in Sörmland, the county where I work with the music school, they have been the hardest affected area in entire Sweden. So in my community, it was the school more or less collapsed. You know, it was more than 50% of the teachers ill, 50% of the students ill. So we had to shut down the community music school for 3 weeks, and my teachers had to go into the ordinary school and to serve as teachers just so something could happen for the children. And lucky enough, after the Easter, we could go back again now to start the teaching in art, in dancing, in drama and music, as we do. But all public events are cancelled still. But the thing is, what as Margareta said, we felt during those 3 weeks that there, in such a short time, there were more problems in the school than before. So that means that the need to do some culture event or sports event to give that to the students is so important. So therefore, so we are now doing the lecture lessons for the students in music individually. And we have no bigger groups than 16 people in the big aula. That is the maximum, and then we have to do it twice. So the parents are secured that this will work. But it is very important to find new ways, and that is how we found the new ways. And we will also doing, for example, for the elderly people who has now been inside for weeks and weeks, we are going outside in the streets and doing concerts on the pedestrians, and sing towards the elderly in the community. And we, in the big city park, we have choir rehearsal for the young kids and so on. So, and I mean, this would never happen before. So this is finding new ways and always what will work, what will not work, and the most important thing, where can we do with this, what we do, secured? Because also in the entire world, it is so different. I mean, we started that it was okay to be 500, and it was 1 week later, it was 50 in Sweden. And in other countries, it has been 2 people. And that means that the doctors who are looking to this, we should say here in the news, that they are still searching, because we don't have the answer yet. And therefore the solutions are different, solved in different countries. And this is how we have done it in Sweden. And I have a little feeling when I do my talks with my colleagues around the world, that we have been a little bit more liberal in Sweden than many other countries. I don't know if you agree with Margareta and Gary.
Yes, it hasn't been a formal lockdown, but it has been, I mean, more or less the same ambition to protect the vulnerable, most vulnerable people in society. But it hasn't been by law, you know, a lockdown or a shutdown, and it has been more a very serious suggestion to people that you observe social distancing and that you, when possible, stay home and work from home.
But
yeah.
The pupils in elementary school have been able to attend school
Exactly.
during the pandemic. The high school students and university students, they do their studies on distance.
Mm. And it's so hard to know if the choices have been the right ones. We'll know farther on down the line, you know. So you can say Sweden has not been a closed country now. So many things have continued as normal, but still trying in so many as best as possible to protect the vulnerable parts of the vulnerable people and parts of society.
Yeah. Thank you all. Margareta, going back to one of the things you said earlier in this webinar, it really weighed in for me, your call for patience. And I think I hear that on all three of you, that this is really taxing us to be patient in a way that we've never been patient. And, you know, in the United States, we've been on a real growth curve with choral music. We've grown from 14 to 17% participation in the last 10 years, and new choirs forming in all kinds of unlikely places. We were on a real roll. And so for us now to stop and say, be patient, and let's use this time, as Margareta said, for different ways of thinking, different ways of planning. This is very hard for us. I think that's what we're all experiencing together. But I appreciate your patience point, because I think that, you know, to everything there is a season, and this may be the season of patience. I appreciate that very much. That's a lesson for me today. Let me ask one final question from you all, a hopeful question, but I think a reflective question. And during this time, you're talking about St. Matthew Passions and Bach motets, and this was what you were programming. Now that we've been through this, are you thinking differently about programming? Brian Stevens asks the question, has this experience now, is it shaping the way you think you're going to program in the year to come, or when we do start singing together? Are you thinking about commissioning a new piece perhaps because of this experience, or are you programming with some sort of empathy? Or I'm sure these are brand new thoughts for all of us, but let's talk about programming for a second. Have your programming thoughts changed a little bit? You want to do Bach, but now are you thinking of something else too? Fred, is that crossing your mind as you kind of think down the road, or are you programming any different thoughts as you look ahead?
Of course, that has come to our mind, and what should the next step be in programming? Of course, we would like go back to Bach as a pillar, a corner pillar in the choral music, of course. But I think that we did already the Stay With Me. That was a new commissioned song together with our Chinese friends. So we have done that. I would hopefully see that we could commission some other music in the future. I think what has the world and we here now has been living through has affected us in all levels. I mean, no one could imagine this. And that, of course, that gives us a new perspective of life. So of course that will inflect in and affect and have influence in my way of thinking of programming. So I to do something with empathy, to do something with internationally with global thinking, because we have been in this all together. It is not one selective country. We have been working hard, and all those people who has lost their lives has also affected us and influenced us. So of course this will be in our mind. I mean, we are planning now for the first week in November, All Saints Day, for example. Of course, that will affect the programming of that concert. What has happened now? So yes, it will be, and I think it will be for a long time.
Yeah. Margareta, how about you? Are you thinking differently now for programming?
I think it's a little bit too early to answer that question, but I agree in what Fred said, and I think that the music that will be composed will probably be composed over new texts about what happened to us recently, and I'm also thinking of the history of the boys' choir. This pandemic will always be a part of our history, because it's happened the year when we were going to celebrate 100 years.
Yeah. How about you, Gary?
Yeah, I'm very touched by certain texts that I read now and see that have come somehow either directly out of this experience or that are related to it. And I'm sure that we'll be looking for pieces that will have, with the text, really have meaning for us now, as from this time. I was so touched by a couple of texts, but this one piece by Frank Ticelli, I don't know the composer, but, and I've heard it performed now a couple of times, this Earth Song. And this text is so touching. Sing, be, live, see, this dark, stormy hour, and the wind it stirs, the scorched earth cries out in vain, oh war and power, you know, and this, and then, but music and singing have been my refuge. Here's a text that I know I've sung actually with my choir, and last night also with the ensemble, that it's not texts that will really touch us, and that can be also express what we are feeling now in this time, having to do with the pain and the sorrow that many people have experienced, and the frustration, and then the joy of again sharing our music and sharing our voices. And this title, The Earth, because what this crisis also, as we've already mentioned and spoken about, this crisis, how it has affected our world, our environment, and this is something that's going to stay with us for a long, long time. You know, how do we live? How do we organize ourselves? How can we continue with some kind of renewed reminder of how our lives, our patterns of behavior, how it affects the earth and the environment. But so I'm sure that we're going to be really finding new relationships to text, to content, to music that means something for us now in this time, completely different than what it has been up until now.
Well, thank you for that. We certainly do agree with you on that thought going forward. Nothing's going to be the same. Well, listen, guys, when TJ and I talked about Sweden, it didn't take us 2 seconds to decide who we wanted to talk to today. We knew it was going to be you three, and You know, this is testimony to choral music and the small world that has been created by what you all talked about that travel that we miss so much, because it was choral music that brought us together and brought you to our great respect and attention as leaders in Sweden and worldwide. So thank you for giving us some of your time. You have lifted our hearts. You give me hope. You make me want to see you again in person really soon. And I hope maybe that you can come to our Dallas conference next year in March, where we'll be celebrating this choral art in some sort of way. We're hopeful that that will return, and that we are planning for that right now with great choirs from around the world. But until then, we will look to you again for inspiration, as we always have. TJ, thank you for your organization here. I know we're going to post this for other people to view, and then tell us a little bit about our next webinar. Where in the world are we going next week, TJ?
Thanks so much, Tim. And that's right. So, of course, thank you so much to our panelists. This has been just so wonderful, beyond what I imagined and what I had hoped. So really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. So, right, we were thinking about this idea of how ACDA, but really those of us in this profession, how we're connecting with one another. And so for next week, our third episode, we're really excited. We're going to spend some time with colleagues from South Korea. And that includes Yoon Hak-wan, that includes Park Shin-hwa, that includes Yoon Uijung or EJ, composer Hyo-won, Woo Hyo-won, and then also Kim Hee-chul. So we're really excited that we have this opportunity next week to engage with that community and those folks who are on the front lines also with this coronavirus. So that'll be next Thursday. And again, like Tim said, this recording is going to go up probably even tonight. I'm really excited about that. But from the bottom of my heart, thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, dear. It was our joy.
And take care of yourselves.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah.
Thank
All
you.
the best.
Ciao.
Happy birthday, Fred.
Thank you.
Back to a nice dinner now, Fred. Okay, bye, everyone. God bless you. And
Bye-bye,
thank you.
Mark.
The song.